guys, so today I'm going to be taking you through the cue that really helped me unlock down dog and helps me kind of unlock it for my clients. The thing with down dog is there's a lot of cues and things going on all at the same time, so it's hard to keep track of what your elbows are doing. Are they drawing in? Are your ears between your shoulders? There's a lot going on in your upper body, but there's a whole lot going on in your lower body too. Obviously, your hamstrings are going to be stretched, so if you have tight hamstrings, it's really easy to focus just on how your hamstrings are feeling and overlook what your hips are doing. So the real cue that just really helped me unlock it and make more sense is to make sure that your tailbone stays untucked, or you have an anterior pelvic tilt as you go into it. So if you've watched any of my live streams, if you've been to one of my classes, you have definitely heard me cue this many times. I always have to do it to myself because it's really easy to just go into a down dog and not notice what your hips are doing at all because you're so focused on your upper body or you're so focused on your hamstrings. So before I start, or when I'm first cueing this to maybe a class that has never done it before, not everybody needs this. Some people it's just, it clicks. Some it doesn't. For me, it didn't click right away. It took me a while to understand the pelvic positions. Posterior is your pelvis tucking in, so your no butt, and anterior is where your pelvis is sticking out. Now, a lot of the poses, we want a slightly tucked tailbone because it helps in our alignment, but in down dog, we want an anterior pelvic tilt. And so how to remember doing that is your tailbone is untucked. It's easier to remember my tailbone is untucked than anterior pelvic tilt and posterior pelvic tilt. So just think tailbone tucked is no butt, tailbone untucked is pushing your butt out. So again, how to just connect that a little bit more, that mind to muscle control, is you're gonna come into just an on all fours, and we're gonna just do a very simple cat-cow. But instead of just going through the motions, pushing it up, pushing it down, I want you to really focus on the tilt of your pelvis. So tuck that tailbone in. So you're tucking it, tucking it, tucking it. So that is kind of more like a posterior pelvic tilt, right? So tailbone tucked, rounded back. We're pushing the ground away. And that is what you want in this pose. Your chin is tucked. And then I want you to slowly undo it. So start to tilt your pelvis back. So anterior pelvic tilt or tailbone untucked. And then let it travel up your spine. Look up towards the ceiling. So I want you to break apart cat-cow just a little bit. And by that I mean start with your hips. Your hips are going to be generating the movement so you can feel what it's like to actually move your hips in and out. You're doing it automatically, but we want to just be more aware of it. Instead of it just being an automatic movement, I want it to become a deliberate movement. So come into neutral. Now tuck your tailbone under. Start with tucking that tailbone and then let it move up your spine. So as you're finishing off tucking it, now you're moving into your spine, into your upper back, pushing the ground away. All right, that pushing the ground away also is going to be very similar how you do down dog. So your elbows are kind of rotating in towards one another, fingers are spread apart, I'm pushing through into my upper back. Now I'm gonna generate the movement again from my hips. So I'm gonna untuck. So see how I'm still pushing the ground away? I'm going to untuck my tailbone. So now I'm sticking my butt out, and now it's gonna travel up my spine. I'm gonna start to bend it back, drop my chest through my arms, and head comes up looking towards the ceiling. All right, one more time. Tailbone tucked first. So I generate that movement so I can separate it from my upper body, move it up the spine, push the ground away. All right, and then I untuck that pelvis, anterior pelvic tilt, travels up the spine, and back. All right, so that is the first cue. So that is how to get that mind-muscle connection or that mind-hip connection. So when you go into down dog, you're gonna come up into that position, so come up off your feet are about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider. Hands are as wide as your shoulders. So first of all, start with your upper body, push the ground away, and then ears between your shoulders like we talked about. Elbows are rotated in towards one another, fingers are wide. Now I'm gonna keep my legs a little bent just for right now, because right now this would be my tailbone tucked. So my tailbone is tucked. You can see I have a round back, right? Even if I had my feet down straight, I would have a round back. So the reason I have my knees bent is because I can more easily untuck my pelvis, especially if you have tight hamstrings. Then untuck that pelvis. All right, so anterior pelvic tilt, tailbone is untucked, and then try to push down those heels, and you'll notice it becomes a lot harder. But you have a much better line from your hands to your tailbone when your pelvis is untucked like this instead of like this. Yes, it's easier for me to drive my heels down because now I've tucked my pelvis under. So my hamstrings are not stretching as much. So I'm going to untuck that pelvis, pushing the ground away, driving those heels towards the ground if I can. Breathe, lengthen that spine. And that's it. Okay? So again, another way that you could do it is you could try starting with the hips. So if you come back into down dog, you could untuck those hips. Well, don't worry about what your hands are doing quite yet. So tucked tailbone, untucked, and then push back into it. Okay, so you could do it either way. You can either get your arms situated first, or you could get your hips situated first. But just make sure that both are situated. You don't want to have perfect alignment in your upper body and your lower body looks like this, right? Or perfect alignment in your lower body, but you look like this. This is a down dog I see actually quite a bit. And you need to push back into it. And bend your knees as much as you need to. Don't be afraid to modify. All right, so that is the cue that really, those two movements, really focusing on what your hips are doing, has been the biggest help in my personal practice and in my clients' practice too. It's just really, you gotta know what your hips are doing. And pretty much all movements, it's a center point of view. As much as every part of your body is important to its function, our hips, I think, tend to get a little overlooked because we're so concerned about our core and it being strong and looking good, right? That we kind of forget that your core is connected to your hip movement. So we got to work on them together. And alignment, making sure you have proper alignment in your hips is just key to that. So again, that's just the cue that helps me out. So I really hope it helps you out. If you try it, let me know in the comments and see if it changes your practice at all. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. All right, see you next time.